The name's Piers Kicks, and I sort of spend a lot of time on various sort of gaming initiatives across ventures, research, and increasingly media as well. Coming off the back of 2021, right, where there was this massive sort of speculative fervor, largely driven by the sort of rise of Axie earlier in the year, really turning the sort of heads of the more traditional games industry. I think we saw, by the end of the year, by sort of November, December, even heading into January of this year, over 50% of all deals being funded in crypto were game related. So obviously we saw this sort of like tremendous wave of interest. Gaming as a sector has definitely taken a massive hit. I think people are slowly sort of waking up to the idea that, these sort of 50 to 100x token sort of multiples before we even have anything playable sort of aren't a meta that's going to persist. I think it's pretty clear that we're well within the sort of trough of disillusionment, if you like, within this hype cycle, and that's fine. I think a lot of the games teams that we've seen moving into the space is super encouraging. But I think, as I say, the sort of reality is that it's going to take time to build these things out, and so that's one of the things we're tracking is just this sort of mismatch in terms of the broader market perception of a lot of people feeling pretty lackluster towards the crypto gaming space. But we're actually pretty excited by the conversations we're having with a number of these, sort of world-class developers who have moved into the space, who have been a bit more patient and slow to react. And, some of them have got super deep in the trenches and literally spoken to 200 plus teams and sort of learned all we can from, this early cycle of crypto gaming. And I think a lot of those learnings are going to translate very well into this sort of next cohort of games. But, as anyone who's spent time in the more traditional game space will know, it's 24, 36 month plus cycles, not these kind of sub sort of 12-month iterations in terms of building out strong games. I think we've very much drawn the attention of the more sort of mainstream operators in terms of the value proposition of true digital ownership and some of these other pieces. So it's awesome to see that pretty much without fail, all of the large, studios and game publishers now have an eye on this. And I think, that's a testament to the sort of quality of the ideas here. One of the ones that really stood out to me is the project Webiverse. I think what those guys are working on in terms of building a sort of game engine that's, fully native to the web and fully built on open web standards is super exciting. They have sort of native WebXR support. They're deeply integrated with crypto, to the sort of maximum amount you could be, and very much intend to sort of open up that engine for broader usage and sort of building over time. And so seeing the progress that those guys made with a very small amount of money in the sort of 12 or so months since they raised last year, it's definitely exciting to see the quality of games moving into the space now. And I think people are going to be pretty surprised when all of that comes together. And then additionally, one of the other ones that I'd love to shout out is there's the guys building Veil VR, which is going to be, looks to be a sort of lead candidate for winning the VR shooter category. And they actually have, a sort of inclination and an eye on crypto, which has been interesting to see. As it stands, it's not like a deep or core sort of proposition to their game, but messing around with Veil this year, they recently hosted the first proper VR, first-person shooter esports tournament, barring the obvious restrictions that come in terms of distribution platforms around, let's say, the Oculus Store and other places. I'm intrigued to see what they might do in terms of weaving crypto, weaving digital collectibles into that over time. I don't think that their concerns are misplaced because, crypto's a tool just like any other thing, right? And I think it can be used for great good, and I think it can be used for great harm. I don't want to point the finger and suggest this is the way it's going at all, but one case in point that I'm definitely watching heading into 2023 is Gabe Layden's company Limit Break. They did this big multi-$100 million raise and have released their first project, which is, I think, Digi-Gaku's, I forget the exact pronunciation of it, but have already blown up quite substantially. Gabe's former company, Machine Zone, completely cracked the free-to-play mobile monetization formula. they were sort of leagues ahead of everyone else as it relates to that. And a lot of those were very aggressive and sort of predatory monetization practices, right? So it remains to be seen, is what I'll say, whether or not, that's the path one of the more prominent, better funded projects is going to go down. I certainly hope not, right? I think one of the reasons many of us are so excited about crypto gaming is that there is the possibility of a much more elegant and equitable sort of alignment between all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, the investors, the players, and the developers, right? And so that's kind of the model that I think we're going to validate and prove out over time. For a long while, I thought it was a case of just sort of blabbering on at people and writing blogs and stuff, and that would change perceptions from the mainstream gamer. It's clear that's not the case. I think, it's really up to us, as an industry to actually build something that shows and demonstrates beyond refute why this stuff is so interesting in games. And so to the 2022 cohort of crypto game skeptics, I say, I don't know, I get it. Hang in there. We're working on it. I think, within the next year or two, we'll have some stuff that really demonstrates why we're so excited. But I totally get why there are reservations at this point. And, I still think most people's primary exposure to crypto gaming, if you type it in on YouTube, blockchain gaming, crypto gaming, whatever, it will make you 100x licking shots. Like, a lot of it still feels like it's trying to, sell you something and force it down your throat. And I totally get that. I totally acknowledge that. I think we haven't done a good job as an industry of communicating this stuff effectively so far. Certainly something I hope, we're gonna improve on sort of on the Delphi side. But yeah, I think we're honestly not far away from the products that really demonstrate this stuff firsthand. So in terms of things that are going to drive the next couple of million people, honestly, I'm not sure that 2023 is the year for it. I think a lot of the teams that I'm really excited about are heads down and they're well underway in their dev cycle. They've got runway, they've built the teams. We've seen a massive talent influx from the traditional game space. I mean, some really senior developers from, Riot, from Activision, from EA, you name it. So the talent's there, the teams have been built, these people are heads down. I wouldn't necessarily bet that we see the next breakout in terms of long-term sustainable title, because I just think the ones that are going to drive that I've got my eye on aren't quite going to be ready yet. What I will say in terms of who might do that is this sort of next cohort of high quality games who are sort of like the ones that came and started building, just after Axie, if you like, and sort of caught the tail end of a lot of the excitement around 2021. Namely, the three sort of coming to market, like Ember Sword, Illuvium, and Guild of Guardians. They're all within probably 6 months of having publicly playable stuff. Again, we've been following along with the builds there. They're looking extremely polished. The reception of stuff like Illuvium in those, like the streamer communities that are sort of being targeted has been really positive so far. Ember Sword hasn't really teased too much yet, but that's, a proper fleshed out, large scale sort of MMORPG coming to market that they've done insane work in terms of their, web engine and how smoothly that runs across any device. Like, I really think these things are technically equipped to accommodate, a mainstream audience. Whether or not it's going to be the year where the perceptions flip and there's, the marketing's right and it hits the right kind of thread with the mainstream gamer remains to be seen. So yeah, I don't want to say that it's not going to be the year that we have, this big blowout case, but I feel like, as I say, the bulk of the teams that have been funded is still going to be heads down for 2023. This next cohort of sort of strong titles coming to market, those three I just mentioned, I think will be really interesting to keep an eye on. Given the sheer amount of funding that's gone into crypto gaming and the sheer number of projects coming to market in the coming years, it's definitely difficult to stay on top of things. We are putting out a sort of monthly Delphi gaming newsletter that, draws attention to upcoming mints, betas, things like that. So that's a pretty strong way to sort of keep tabs on what's happening and have a sort of bird's eye view on the market. Beyond that, like, a lot of these teams are choosing to stay in stealth and, would rather sort of start the marketing wheel when, more of the game's actually built out and they have more to show. And so can probably expect to see a lot of that coming in the later half of 2023. I think this notion of interoperability is still an interesting one. We're years away from what it's, usually touted as, unless it's like, a small group of games that agree to opt into something like that. But I think some of the stuff that's going to be unlocked through that over time is going to be very interesting, especially as it relates to, these people building foundational sort of platform layers of different like creator ecosystems. So that might be something that looks like a Roblox or a Fortnite creative. It might be something that looks like, building a sort of Counter-Strike style game engine that everyone can build maps for, gun attachments, skins, and things like that. I think that kind of world where, you can really unlock and turn the whole creative side of things over to the community with, no code or low code tooling to do so, is going to be super interesting to see. And I think the reason that crypto is going to prevail in that world is because of this amazing sort of granularity that you can get in terms of royalties and how, creator fees basically are sort of streamlined across, perhaps many different derivative creations. If I'm an asset designer that creates even a texture pack, if I model that and it ends up being used in, 1,000 different games, then in some ways basically be able to track the sort of monetary flows across all of those and like have everyone comped in real time. I think that's a pretty interesting and exciting vision. But yeah, there shouldn't be any distinction by them between crypto games and non-crypto games. I think it would be extremely exciting to see Epic push out some first-party support of some, digital collectibles, some crypto-related stuff. Fortnite's still a huge game, multi-billion dollars a year in sort of, microtransactions for in-game goods. I think starting to maybe not sell stuff up front, but starting to drip digital collectibles into the game could be really interesting. The way I see something like that potentially playing out is around, let's say the Fortnite World Championships. Again, someone might be able to own the skin used or the item used by, the winning player. I feel like this is the kind of way that they might actually start dripping provenance and digital ownership into an economy like that without actually selling stuff up front, which again might upset the audience and the player base if they feel like they're just having stuff, sold to them again. And then just to, further add to that, I think it was Tim Sweeney's 2019 SIGGRAPH talk where he really demonstrated the insane depth of his knowledge technically of decentralized systems. He was like, actually has a really amazing understanding of it, and kind of drew out these two paths towards like, the longer view of actually getting to a sort of state-of-the-art chain that's quick enough and scalable enough to actually accommodate what we need in some of these economies. And the other one is the sort of more federated model, right? A sort of consortium of large game studios and publishers who all opt into sort of maintaining this chain that does meet the technical requirements, but probably sacrifices on decentralization to do so. I think that would be a really interesting step, right? And it's like one of those wild cards that if one day Epic said we've been working on a consortium with Sony and some others, I'd be like, that would be a huge step towards mass adoption in my eyes. But let's see, one can only hope.